Good morning. Today we are picking up our reading on page 2 in the journey through the text of A Course in Miracles by the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, which used to be Foundation for Inner Peace, and they changed their name. And I am picking up the reading on prayers to God. Some passages in A Course in Miracles tell us that God hears our prayers. Indeed, that if we ask Him for help, He will answer us. We are also taught in the Course its predominant teaching that God does not hear our prayers at all and does not understand words because they were made to keep Him separate from us. Nonetheless, part 2 of the workbook consists of one beautiful prayer after another, which we are supposed to utter to God. However, these are not really for Him at all, but are meant to express a corrective or differing thought system, one that sees God as a loving Father rather than a hateful one. The miracle. Several statements in Chapter 1 seem to suggest that the miracle is something we do, a behavior, which is certainly consistent with the traditional notion. For example, the miracles depicted in the Bible, such as the parting of the Red Sea and the healings that Jesus performed, are external or behavioral phenomena. Part of Chapter 1 deals specifically with this, and we will see other examples as we proceed through the text. However, the overriding emphasis of A Course in Miracles is that miracles are thoughts, having nothing to do with the body or behavior, being the mind's corrections for the misthoughts of the ego. This method in Jesus' literary madness of talking on different levels, which we will see again and again, is that He meets us where we believe we are. Jesus. Jesus is spoken of in different ways. He is depicted as if He were a specific person in our minds, deeply involved in our lives. But we are also taught that He is not a person at all, being a mere illusion. The more accurate way of understanding Him would be as the mind's symbol of love, not the biblical figure of Christian teaching. The Holy Spirit. Another potential source of confusion addressed specifically in the Song of Prayer is that the Holy Spirit's role is described in some places as that of solving all problems, answering all questions, and meeting all needs. Yet in other places, Jesus tells us there is only one problem and thus one answer and one need. We are taught that our problems and needs have absolutely nothing to do with this world, for our only problem is the belief in separation from God, from one, and the answer is the Holy Spirit's atonement at one-ment. Meaning of words. Also potentially confusing is the fact that words are often used differently in A Course in Miracles from the way that we use them in everyday speech. One of the more significant of these is atonement, which in our Judeo-Christian heritage expresses some element of suffering or sacrifice as payment to God for what we believe we did to Him. In the Course, however, atonement denotes quite the opposite. The section Atonement Without Sacrifice explains that atonement is God's correction through the Holy Spirit, which asks nothing of us except that we accept the truth that the separation never happened. Nothing has to be atoned for. The term Son of God, which is ubiquitous, is another significant example. Our immediate response is to think of Jesus, the Son of God of the 2,000-year tradition. A Course in Miracles corrects this by teaching that we are all sons of God, and Jesus is but one member of that sonship. Still, other words and terms used differently are Christ, forgiveness, sin, and reason. In view of all this, it is important that students working with the course material rethink the meanings of its words, using their own understanding as the backdrop against which the correction occurs. So let's remember to keep an open mind for a new experience. Poetry, blank verse. Another important aspect of the Course's language is that much of it is written poetically. Once we get past the first 4 or 5 chapters of the Course, I will discuss this further when we begin Chapter 1. We see a noticeable shift in the writing. These early chapters are written in a relatively awkward manner, wherein the ideas are not always expressed clearly, and the writing is not particularly beautiful. The writing begins elevating to a higher level around Chapter 5, gradually increasing until its poetic zenith is reached near the end, from roughly the second half of the text to its conclusion. A great deal of the writing is in blank verse, its particular form being iambic pentameter, the form of Shakespeare's poetry. Blank verse is metrical poetry that does not rhyme, and iambic pentameter means that there are 5 meters or segments of a metric line, each of them having the rhythm of an iamb, short, long, ba-bup, 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 ba-bup. Again, one finds more and more of this beautiful form of poetry in later chapters, and the last 2 chapters of the text are entirely in blank verse. I will mention 2 other examples of the Course's style, wordplay and alliteration. Wordplay. The wonderful wordplay in the Course enhances the power of the Course's message. As an illustration, the word question is used in certain passages both as the interrogative, someone asks a question and receives an answer, as well as to express doubt. I question what you say to me. There is some subtle interplay of those 2 meanings as in the following representative passage. God has lit your mind himself and keeps your mind lit by his light because his light is what your mind is. This is totally beyond question, and when you question it, you are answered. The answer merely undoes the question by establishing the fact that to question reality is to question meaninglessly. That is, let me get back, why the Holy Spirit never questions. His sole function is to undo the questionable and thus lead to certainty. The certain are perfectly calm because they are not in doubt. They do not raise questions because there is nothing questionable, because nothing questionable enters their minds. This holds them in perfect serenity because this is what they share, knowing what they are. And the italics were added there. Compare this usage of the word different. Only the different can attack, so you conclude because you can't attack, you and your brother must be different. Yet does the Holy Spirit explain this differently? Again, italics are added, except because. Finally, the word light. One passage comes midst a discussion of darkness and light. You will travel light and journey lightly. Here we find the combined ideas of the journey from darkness to light and throwing off the heavy burden of our guilt and fear. Alliteration. The Course has some wonderful alliteration, two of the more memorable ones being fear's savage search for sin and the effect of shifting to the holy relationship, a process that disturbed, disjunctive, and even quite distressing. All right, and I'm going to stop there because our next, the musical forms, is quite long. I definitely can tell you that is Ken Wapnick's. He loves talking about this. It's in a lot of his work, the musical form of A Course. So actually this part is quite long. So I will read that tomorrow. Thank you for joining with me today. I will see you then. Have a beautiful day. I love you. And if you're new to my recordings, I read around my dogs because I can't get away from them and I enjoy being with them. And so it can sometimes be loud with snoring and snorkeling because they're quite loud. They're like little piggies. So I love you. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.